This is a second generation 2024 Hyundai Kona. This is their small SUV, but just like all the other small SUVs that are coming out these days, it has grown. And this particular one is the N line. And this is not one of my full reviews. I only have a few minutes with this car, but I do want to quickly walk around and take a look at it and take it on a real quick drive. Looking at the car from the front, you know, the same basic styling carries over, but it definitely has a lot of interesting detail. There are a lot of interesting shapes down low and this kind of like lower spoiler baked into it right here. Some interesting patterns into the lower grille right here. And there is an intercooler behind that. This does have a turbocharged 1.6 liter engine. Let's take a quick look. And there it is, a transversely mounted 1.6 liter turbocharged engine. I'll go ahead and put the horsepower and torque numbers up on the screen so you guys can check that out. You know, for a crossover this size, this is a pretty healthy engine and plenty of output to get moving. And considering that it's transversely mounted, you can see the shock towers right here. Center line of the front axle is right around here. So the engine isn't too far forward. You know, it's right around here. So the center of the engine is around the center line of the front axle. So there's not too terribly much weight hanging over the front axle. It's actually not that bad. I also find it interesting that the battery is tucked right next to it. That's surprising me. And you can see the heat shield for it right around it. But still, that's closer to the engine than I would have expected. Oh, and by the way, windshield washer fluid goes right here. Looking at the car in profile, you can see that it is still a small SUV, and we do have nice short overhangs, both the front and the rear. The rear is especially short, but there's also a lot of design shaped into this thing. Look at the fender flares right here. It's interesting to see that kind of like baked into it right there. Then you have this character line that runs right from the front, goes underneath the side view mirror covers right to the back door, but then there's like a rear fender flare right here that kind of bulges here, and you get these low tail lights and then higher tail lights, and then this upper roof mounted rear spoiler. This is pretty elaborate, this piece right here. And then we have some roof rails right here and another character line that goes from the bottom of the front door up to the top of the second door. And then we have this piece down here with a lower cowl. This is a pretty darn busy car in profile. It looks cool, but oh, there's a lot going on. Something tells me less would be more in this particular case. It's interesting too that we have the smallest SUV that Hyundai sells, and yet even that rolls on 19-inch wheels. That's something. And the wheels are square, so it's the same in front as it is in back. Looking at the rear of the car, it's pretty loud visually back here as well. You know, there's that pronounced, you know, we want to call it a roof-mounted spoiler, but it really is a wing. And then there's a more traditional roof-mounted spoiler right here with the tail light out here. Pretty heavily raked rear windshield right here, but then a nice, proud Kona badge, Hyundai just above that. You do have four-wheel drive H-Track right there, but then look down low. We get dual exhaust tips right there, and then this faux diffuser right here, and this is pronounced. So they're leaning pretty heavily on the styling here. And man, there's a lot going on. Don't forget, this is an N line, so that's going to be part of it, but boy, it's not subtle. We do have pretty darn decent amount of space back here, it must be said. I'll go ahead and put the exact space you get right there on the screen so you can check that out. But this is a nice, easy, usable space. We've got this nice privacy panel right here, and underneath, we do have an actual spare tire. And if you do need additional space, the second row seats do fold flat easily, but I just don't have the time to show you that right now. I do currently have the front seat to be comfortable for me. And with that, I actually do have enough leg room. I do have about 2 or 3 inches of knee room, and I even have less than a 90-degree bend in my knees. It's actually pretty comfortable back here. I even have a headroom despite the fact that we have a moonroof up here. I do also have a couple of USB Type-C ports right there, and yeah, an armrest with cup holders. Life is good back here. To the front. This interior actually reminds me a lot of the Ioniq 6, which I test drove recently, and that is not a bad thing. We do have N embossed into the seats right here. We have decent upper bolstering here and okay lower bolstering too. These are power adjusted seats, including lumbar control right there. We do have a couple of controls to the left of the steering wheel, including the electric park brake right here and the typical controls on the door. You get a fully digital instrument cluster right there and another center console touchscreen right next to it. Beneath that, start stop button. There is the instrument cluster lit up and the center console touchscreen right next to it. You do get dual zone climate control right there, more USB ports, and a Qi wireless charger right there, and a nice little indicator for it right there. You do have heated seats and some drive modes, of course. I'll get to those in just a second. And you have this nice tray right here as well. And this has dual purpose. You have open tray here, push this, becomes a cup holder. That's a neat little trick, I'd say. You do have more space behind that with this little partition and a little bit of space back here as well. Looking up, there are some lights and controls for your moonroof right there, including an electric privacy panel. All right, drive modes. You get normal, sport, and snow. Pretty straightforward. Fortunately, this time of year, we'll just stick with normal, and let's go for a quick drive. All right, clearly I do not have my usual equipment and my usual setup or my usual amount of time, so this is just gonna be a quick drive. I can tell you right off the bat that the second generation Kona drives a lot more grown up, a lot more solid than the first generation car. It just feels more put together. And in just a moment, I'm gonna do a quick acceleration test. Okay, coming to a quick stop. Foot on the brake, about 2,000 RPM, foot off the brake. Little something. There we go. Turbo's kicking in. We get good quick shifts here. Yeah. For a compact crossover SUV, that is totally fine. Nothing about it is exciting, but it's perfectly adequate for what you need. So yeah, I would call that completely reasonable acceleration. And generally speaking, I am comfortable in these seats. It's spacious in here, definitely more so than the first generation Kona. And things like wind and road noise are better behaved than they have been in the past. So this is definitely a more solid, just nice to drive, more grown-up machine, you know? And, you know, the price of the Kona reflects that. This is certainly more expensive than the last generation Kona. And the one thing that is definitely true is that I'm curious enough to give it a full review. That's for certain. Thank you for watching. I'm Robin Warner. Goodbye for now.